Hello, and thank you again for joining us on a wonderful day. Today we're going to be playing, I'm going to lower the volume a little bit. We're going to be playing Trap Chess again. I'm going to put a code in the chat. You can download Trap Chess on trapchess.com, enter the code, and play with me live. Let's get started. So here comes the play code. I'm going to type it in the chat. 57762W. Join. All right. And I'll put the maximum 16 landmines. That'll increase the activations or the risk associated with crossing to my side of the board, which may or may not lead to more activations. I'll also be playing with my landmines showing. This is the location of all my landmines, and here's what removes what. That's directly in the app. So because I'm playing the white pieces, you can see it on my timer bar. All of my landmines remove black pieces. It looks like the first person has joined, so here we go. I'll make my first move. Boom. So I'll just do the standard starting move. E2 to E4 is the most common opening move in chess. So we'll stick to that. On my channel on Fridays, I put up videos of activations using the board game. And I have Stockfish, the world's best chess computer, play against Stockfish. And then every time there's an activation, I remove the piece, and I have landmines throughout the whole board, so Stockfish can lose a piece on its first move. And when I do that, I always do the E2 to E4 starting move because I want to see how the games end up. And no two games have been the same. Once a trap is hit, things just change. So all right, here we go. I made E2 to E4. It's my opponent's turn. Cool. So if you have any questions about Trap Chess, you can ask them in the chat, and I'd be happy to answer any questions. If you have any questions about life, one time someone came in and asked about relationship advice. I can help with that too, I guess. I am in a relationship. Yep. Or if you have questions about pets, I have some pets. I can answer those as well. But mainly we just talk about Trap Chess here. You can see, it's mirrored, so I always mess that up. See over my shoulder, that's the board game. And then over here is the divider. So the differences between them, the app allows you to play with the least barriers to entry. So when you're playing a game, you just create a code, send it to a friend, they enter the code, you choose how many landmines you want, it hides them randomly on your half of the chessboard, and you play. That's how it works for the app. It's the least barriers to entry, so people can try it. It's free. It doesn't save any data except game data and things used for debugging, like push notifications that fail, or other than push notifications that fail, I think there's push notifications, trap activations, things like that, just normal game data. So you don't even get the chance to create an account. It saves it locally on your device, whatever games you played. I'm going to make my next move. And yeah, so it's pretty easy to download and install. The next level is the board game. See, I did it again. The board game, which is right there. The board game allows you to choose where you lay your traps, and it also unlocks a new type of trap known as chess piece traps. Those are traps that are hidden behind chess pieces or equipped to them. So then when you're playing and you take an opponent's piece, there's a risk that you could lose a piece. There's no traps for the king, by the way, because the king is the only piece in chess that doesn't leave the board. So yeah, and then the next level is the divider. The divider partitions the board, so you can't see your opponent's half and they can't see yours. And that allows you to lay traps during gameplay instead of just before the game begins. So there's 2 additional game modes that are unlocked with it. There's also rule variations that give you a lot of different ways to play, but the game modes are like, one of them is every time white makes a move and then black makes a move, the divider goes in. And when the divider goes in, you each get to lay 1 trap. The other version is every time a piece crosses to the other side of the board, the divider goes in and each player gets to lay a trap. So it changes the strategies. associated with it. You have variations with it too, like sight on, sight off. I think I'm going to do a video on sight for coming out for this upcoming Monday. Sight is if your traps are shown or not. So right now on my side of the board, I'm playing with sight on. You can see the locations of all of my traps. So if you're following with the stream and playing with me, you can see which squares to avoid going to with your pieces to avoid losing a piece. Sight on is great for people learning because it gives them the information they need. Sight off is the other version. Sight off is the normal way to play, where you play with all of your traps face down. And if you play with them face down, each time you cross to your opponent's side, or if you're playing a version where any trap on either side can affect either player, that's when you check to see if it removes your piece. There's also strategy in that. So if you check a square and you see that it's a landmine, you have to make a mental note and remember what landmine was there, so you know not to hit it with your piece because you don't want to lose it. Or you can see it's a blank and you know that, okay, this is a safe spot for me to put any piece. So there is strategy involved just with like remembering where the pieces are. So chess is a really old game, and it's gotten to the point where there's names for all the different openings and the ways you can play. And so like if I make a move, there's a name for it. And then if you make a response, there's a name for it. And I make a move, there's a name for it. And then it starts splitting. And then there's variations where it'll say something like, you know, blah, blah, blah variation. And then you just kind of play through. But with trap chess, the moment a trap activates, it gives you a brand new board position. So now the variations are gone. So to be a really great chess player, a lot of high-level players study, and they study older games. They see what people did, and they look for incremental changes to give them an advantage through different openings. However, in trap chess, that doesn't really work. That memorization that you do is different. The memorization is now memorizing where you put your traps. You could also do the incremental, like studying the history to, you know, memorize it that way. That works as well. But when you get a new board position from a trap activation, it takes a little bit of that out of there. So, because the moment a trap activates, you have a brand new board position that's never been seen by that turn. So you can't memorize something that never existed. So it puts the memorization in a different way, where it's remembering individual squares. I bring this up because chess itself, if you go on like Google Scholar and you search for research on chess, you'll notice that there's a lot of research that shows positive mental health benefits. So improved memory, teaches critical thinking skills, teaches pattern recognition, helps people when they're later on in life with fighting off dementia and Alzheimer's. It has memory benefits and critical thinking benefits. So it's a great game just all around. But trap chess still has those benefits because it's chess, but the memorization is more tailored towards, or the memory is more tailored towards pattern recognition a little bit more. So it's kind of like it combines that a little bit because you're trying to remember where the traps are and the locations and things like that. Personally, I remember based on location. So I'll look and I'll be like, okay, I know it's like 2 over, 3 up. But there is a grid system in chess. So you could remember it as, okay, I have a knight landmine on b4, you know, or avoid that b4 square. The board game itself, the second version, comes with the grid put on the board. I'll show it to you. So this is it. It's hard to like turn a board game this way when it folds without. But yeah, you can see it has the grids on it. So that grid makes it easier for people learning how to play and to also understand how games are recorded. Because those grids are used, or the grid is used to record games. In trap chess itself, I have a move log. I can't show it to you right now because it's early and I can't scroll because of how I have it set up, but there's a move log, and the move log does record every move. I added additional notation to the move log, so every time a trap activates, there's notation for it. So for example, if a pawn landmine is hit, it'll say the move and then PLM for pawn landmine, which means the pawn landmine removed a piece. There's also something in trap chess called fizzle. So the landmines work 100% of the time with regular chess rules, with one exception. If I were to make a move and hit a trap, and then hitting that trap removes my piece and opens up an X-ray attack or an attack on my king, then my opponent could spend their turn taking my king, which breaks the rules of chess because I'm not allowed to make a move that puts my king in danger. So in that case, you'll have fizzle, which will pop up in the move log with an F. Okay, so my opponent is attempting to attack my knight. I will save my knight by moving it to the side of the board. The side of the board is weaker for chess pieces than being in the center, but that's okay. I'm doing this mainly to save my piece. If my opponent decides to push b7 to b5, I have c5 for my knight to go to. And then it's pretty safe there, and it's in a central location. Sometimes when I play people, I've noticed that they get really aggressive with their queen early on. Now, I'm not a fan of getting aggressive with my queen early on, because when your opponent hasn't moved a lot of their pawns, they can literally use their pawns to attack your queen while keeping them protected by other pawns, and then you just have to run because you have to save it. So it lets your opponent advance and develop their pieces while you're spending turns saving one piece. So you start to fall behind as the game progresses. So here, being aggressive with the pawn there was a good move. I like that move, but generally, it's totally fine. So I have to be vigilant, and I have to look for my opponent's next moves to make sure I'm not spent just moving my knight back and forth while they advance and develop their pieces. So right now, I'm thinking of going bishop from c1 to b2. That's a move I'm considering. The pawn on d4 is protected by the queen, and they can easily protect it again by going e7 to e5 with another pawn. But I did open up that square to put the bishop there originally, so maybe I'll come up with a way to break through there. Because if I go c1 to b2, then I could do c2 to c3. Then I have, if they take, I take back with the bishop. If they don't take, I can take. They take with the pawn. And then that pawn is still sitting there on the d4 square if they had gone e7 to e5. And their queen still protects the d4 square. But, my goal here is, if they're trying to block the center, I'm trying to break through. I'm trying to find a way to weaken their center holding so that I can get control of the center a little bit better, because all pieces are strongest in the center. As I can give you an example. If you put a bishop in the corner, bishop can go one direction, and not musically, just I don't even know any songs by One Direction. I never listened to One Direction. I don't know their songs. I don't even know. Is Harry Styles One Direction? I'm not sure. Anyway, so it can go one direction. If you put it on the side, it can go two directions. If you put it in the middle, it can go it can go four. So it's just stronger in the middle, and it's the same for every piece. Knight in the corner can only hit 2 squares. Knight on the side, depending on where it is, can hit 3 to 4. Yep, I saw that move coming, so hopefully it's not a knight landmine there. Good, we're safe. And now my knight is pretty safe on that square. I can reinforce it too if I go b3 to b4. That way, if my knight gets taken, I can take back. But right now, there aren't any pawns that can push my knight off of that square. And if you look, it's attacking b7, a6, a4, b3, d3, d7, e4. It's protecting the pawn, and it's attacking e6. So that knight is in a great location now, hitting a lot of squares, and it's safe because it can't get pushed back by pawns because all the pawns have advanced too far. So even though my opponent is making me move my knight by attacking the knight repeatedly, I feel comfortable, and I was able to navigate it to a central square that's powerful without having to really worry about it in the future. My opponent could attempt to push it out by going like knight to a6, putting pressure on the knight on c5. They could also open up their bishop on f8 by moving their pawn from e7 to e5. That'll also protect the pawn on the d4 square. And then I'll just reinforce my knight with moving my pawn from b3 to b4. Or I can reinforce it, or I can move it. I could put it on the d3 square. But I don't mind my opponent taking the knight because I can always take back, especially if I put the pawn there. And then my pawn is pushed a little bit further. I'll just have to find a way to protect it, probably by getting a pawn on the d4 square or my bishop there eventually. Right now, though, I think my opponent definitely has the advantage, but it's trap chess. So one wrong move could lead to landing on a landmine and losing a piece. And when you lose a piece that way, depending on the value of the piece, you get these swings on who's ahead. So I was saying earlier, I play games on Friday, Stockfish versus Stockfish, you know, the world's best chess computer versus the world's best chess computer, but it's playing trap chess because I'm inputting the information for, hey, this piece was taken or removed by a landmine. So I input that information for it so it can do the continuation for the next best move. But when I do that, I notice that when a landmine hits, there's always a swing and who has the advantage. And the swing is generally, for early game, it's close to the number of points. I played a game of Stockfish versus Stockfish 2 days ago, and I think it was White Castle, king side. So White Castle, they moved their king from e1 to g1, and their rook from h1 to f1. And the rook landed on a landmine, so the rook was taken out, and the game had been pretty even, and immediately black had an advantage, and they give you like a number for the advantage, and it said 4.5. The rook is worth 5 points, so 4.5 was pretty close to the value of the rook. I don't know a lot of openings in chess, but I think it was being done with the Rui Lopez opening. That's where we were with the castling, so there was a lot of central attacks, and then the rook was just gone, which was totally part of the strategy, and it just flipped, and black suddenly was so far ahead. All right, let's start applying some pressure. We're going to put our bishop on b2 and go for that d4 pawn. Now that pawn is protected by the queen on d8, so I will need an extra attacker for that pawn, but I do like having the pressure put there. If my opponent decides to go a5 to a4, which is something they might have been considering with the a7 to a5 move, I have b3 to b4. I don't have to take the pawn, and that will also solidify in protecting my knight on that central square. When I say central, I know it's not central. It's central adjacent, but that's too many syllables. I'll just say central. All right. Thanks for watching so far, guys. You know, I'm having a pineapple seltzer, and I read pineapple is one of the only, it's a fruit that eats you back. So apparently the enzymes, or the way pineapple is, the acidity can break down the enzymes in your mouth. So if you ever have a lot of pineapple, some people say their mouth gets tingly. I don't know. I personally just love pineapple. All right, so now my opponent is doing that attack. They don't like where my knight is. They're also attacking that pawn. Let's see what we're going to do. I think I'll protect my pawn. I think that's the best move, by going a2 to a3. And then if they happen to take the knight on c5, I just take back with my pawn. Oh, yeah? Yo, what's up? You also love pineapple? Yeah, me too. Isn't it amazing? Oh, hey, how's it going? Thanks for joining the stream, Brian. Yo, pineapple is the best. My favorite fruit, though, has to be pomegranate. There's like flavor profiles for food. So there's, you know, like sour, sweet, spicy, salty. You know, so my favorite is sour. And then number 2 is umami, which is the savory one. I just love like a good steak. Yeah, thanks for coming. It's great to see you. I haven't seen you in a while, man. How have you been doing? Whoa, it's so cool. I'm still learning streaming, and I clicked your name, and it says I can give you a timeout. I'm not going to give you a timeout. I want to talk to you. I want time in. Yeah, if you'd like to catch the next game too, feel free to download the app. Okay. So now I have on the left side, I have a pretty solid defense going on. You know, everything's protected properly. My knight is in a good spot. My opponent just moved their knight out. I'm considering moving my pawn from e4 to e5 to attack their knight, but they have 16 landmines, which means 8 of those are pawn landmines, so there's a 25% chance I'm going to hit a pawn landmine and lose my pawn. So I'm thinking about that risk there, and I think the best thing to do is bring my knight into the action too. Oh yeah, beach season is coming. You got your beach bod ready? Yeah. Your game was really cool, Brian. Thanks for letting me try it. The person in chat made this game with fish, and I like fishing. And there was a game where it's you play a fly with a gun and you shoot the fish that are trying to eat you. And then you get power-ups. So I played it for a little bit. It was a lot of fun. I like that it also remembered the power-ups and the things I grabbed. It was really cool. Yeah. We originally talked about, like, when you were telling me about maybe making a trap chess on, like, a .io platform. I didn't think it was the perfect platform for my game, but I think it really works for yours. Mine is out for iPhone and Android, and I thought that was much better for this type of game, especially with a 12-hour timer, because you play at your leisure, and if it's on iPhone and Android, it's on your phone, which you take with you everywhere. Whereas, like, if I did it as an IO game, you'd have to sit there and play it, and you never, you know, and people get busy. Like, now, as I get older, I find I have less time. So I like the idea of having someone makes a move, and I get a notification. I know it's my turn. I see what they did, and I try to work through it there. You know, I thought it was a better strat for this particular game, but for yours, I think it works perfectly. Yeah, so right now, I'm considering, I have a few things going on. I moved the knight from g1 to f3. The knight is targeting that pawn on d4. Now I have 2 attackers on that pawn. I have my knight on f3 and my bishop on b2. My opponent only has 1 defense for that pawn right now, which is their queen on d8. It's worth a lot more points than a knight or a bishop. It's worth 9, and they're only worth 3 each. So it makes it so that I feel pretty confident and safe taking that pawn. So because now I get 1 point, I gain that central square. If my opponent takes back, they're going to get 3 points, but then I take and I get 9. So I'll get 10 points out of the deal, and they'll only get 3. So from my perspective, it's a pretty solid defense and solid grab there on the d4 square. Also, that bishop on d4 is giving extra protection to my c5 bishop, which lets me take it with the bishop if the knight takes my knight. And that preserves my pawn structure on a3 and b4. Also, it makes it so that if my opponent does open up the e7 to e5 pawn, if I have my bishop on c5, I can take their bishop, which prevents them from castling, because they'll have to use their rook or their king to take back. Oh, okay. So you started Flymageddon as a web-focused thing, but I'm currently getting my... Nice! I can't wait for you to do a Steam page. Let me know. I'll play it. I liked it a lot. So I have this thing where if a friend or someone I know works on something and really gives it their all, I always try to read or try it. I mean, I know someone, it was a friend of a friend who wrote a book, and I bought the book and read it. And I don't read books really. I'm more of an internet reader. My wife is the book person. So, okay. So now my opponent is looking at, with their g4 pawn, they're looking at taking me on f3, taking the knight. If they take the knight on f3, it removes the protection for the bishop on d4. So if they take the knight, I take them back, they take the bishop. That's kind of how it's looking right now. So what I'm going to do instead is give that bishop a little bit of extra protection with my pawn. Yeah, and it's cool that you're getting all your assets together for your Steam page. Yeah, that's awesome though. Let me know. I'll definitely check it out. And thanks for letting me play it and try it with that code. It was a lot of fun. I have this game that I started recently that I haven't finished yet. It's called Nelson Tether's Puzzle Agent 2. I beat the first one. It's kind of ridiculous. I like the premise. You're like this agent that works for, I think it's the CIA, the puzzle division at the CIA. And they go, hey, Nelson, I have to tell you, the company that makes the erasers for the White House is no longer producing erasers, and we need this fixed ASAP. So they send you out to, I think it's Minnesota or Wisconsin. I don't remember. They send you out somewhere to like the West, and you go there and you start uncovering all these things, and everything is a point and click with puzzles. And I beat the first one. It was really fun. But it's one of the funny things about it is you'll walk around town and you can't get gum, like chewing gum. And he goes, oh, chewing gum is how I think, and it helps me with the puzzles. So he's like picking gum out from like in diner under tables, you know, off of tables, picking gum off of walls. And then you can chew it if you want a hint on a puzzle, which is so gross, but it made me laugh. All right, so my opponent's they moved from g7 to g5. That pawn is protected by the h6 pawn. What I think I'm going to do now is I want to apply a little bit of pressure. I'm going to chance this. I want to apply pressure on that knight. I'm going to chance it, but I could hit a landmine. So here we go. All right, safe square. It takes like a second, and then you'll know if you hit a landmine because it'll just go. It's this, a long time ago, I bought this pack of sounds and music from Humble Bundle. Are you familiar with Humble Bundle, Brian? Yeah, I know. Isn't it great? He just like picks up gum randomly and chews it. You're like, oh, you're in the woods and you're like, oh, here's some gum on a tree. This puzzle's giving me a hard time. And then you just eat it. And now you have a hint. If you've ever looked at Humble Bundle, they had this bundle that was for game making bundles. Yeah, and it gave you a lot of music and sound. And so I got that, and then I thought about my game, and I was like, yeah, I'm going to use some of these sounds and music from this bundle because that's what I bought it for. And I used this one. I think it was like Earth Spell 4 for the landmines, because the landmines are laid in, like, chess is a game of war, and the board is just territory, and the landmines are laid in individual spots of territory. And so if you land on it, you're stepping on Earth. So I thought Earth Spell was the best version, and it sounds the most like what you would hear if it like was a landmine blowing up, because that's the names I gave them. Yeah, sound packs really are great. You know, it had so many like resources in it. I spent hours just going through and listening to every single one of them. And then you pick a few and you put them on the side for like a rainy day. I like to mess with my wife. She's really fun, and she's a really like good sport with things. So I would like pick sounds, and then I'd be on the phone with her, and then I'd just play a sound, and she's like, "Is that a baby crying in the background?" I'd be like, "I have no idea what you're talking about." Yeah, the bundles really are worth it. There's a lot of pre-made assets too. There was. Yeah, maybe. All right, let's see. So I think there's a way here that I can break through now. I have good protection in the center. I'm controlling it well. My opponent has their knight in a central location now. Yeah, everything I do is to prank my wife. Every single thing. No, and it's what I live for. No, I'm kidding. She's the best. So I'm looking now, and I could move my pawn from c3 to c4. My opponent can take with their b5 pawn, but then I have my bishop that can come in from f1 and grab that square too. And then I'm attacking both the knight on d5 and the knight on a6. It also breaks up the pawn structure that my knight has there, or my opponent has there, because they have c6 protecting b5, protecting a4. So if I just snag that b5 one out of the way, I think it's beneficial. Boom. So we'll do that. Apply some pressure right there. My opponent doesn't have a spot that they can move their knight to that will readily cause me problems. So, and if they don't address this, let's say they move their knight to, I don't know, f4, which is a possibility. I can take that b5 pawn, and then if they don't take back, I can take their c6 pawn and just break through on that side. If I do take the b5 pawn and they take back from c6, I have my bishop on f1 that can come in. That's a check. And then that knight is also on a6 is being targeted by my bishop as well. It's protected by the rook on a8, but still. Okay, let's take a look. Yeah, my wife is so fun. All right, let's take a look. I have a plan. I have an idea here. I'm going to threaten checkmate right now. So if I'm able to get my bishop on g6, there's 3 ways to get out of check. The first way to get out of check, and Brian, if you download the app, you can totally get next game if you want. I'll throw a code in the chat and you can join. So there's 3 ways to get out of check. The first way to get out of check is to take the piece attacking you. If I'm on the g6 square, I'm safe. Unless there's a landmine there, and then I'll just lose my bishop. The second way to get out of check is to block. So the only square that would be open if my bishop is on g6 to block is f7. But there aren't any pieces that can actually get to the f7 square to block. The third way to get out of check is to move your king. The only squares the king can currently move to are f7 and d7. d7 is blocked by that knight I have on c5, and f7 will be blocked by the bishop on g6 if I get it there. So so I'm threatening checkmate right now. My opponent has to do something about that. The music is kind of addicting. So this music was actually created by someone named nice. Thanks, Brian. This music was created by someone named Mark Anthony, Shark. He goes by Shark Anthony. You should check out his website. I think it's sharkanthony.com. If you Google him, he should come right up. Also on my YouTube videos, I put a link to his website on like the Thursday videos when his music is present in the video, because the Thursday videos are all trap activations from the app. Let's see. So I'm looking. That checkmate looks good. Checkmate always looks good if you can follow through with it, but see if my opponent can see it and block it. Yep, that blocks it. So I have an option where I could go h7 with the bishop, and then the only way they can still block the checkmate and save their rook would be if they went to g7 with the rook. Because rooks are worth 5 points and bishops are only worth 3. So they would want to save their rook. Okay, you know what? We're going to go for that knight. Landmine. I hit a pawn landmine taking the knight. So, I mean, that's not bad. I did get 3 points, but the landmine takes me back automatically, so my opponent gets 1 point in response. So I'm net 2 points up, but normally in this situation, my opponent would have to take back on that square. They would have to move their queen from d8 to d5 or go pawn from c6 to d5 to take back, but because the landmine took me, my opponent can make any move they want in response rather than spending a turn taking my piece back on the normal like take of chess. So it opens up new possibilities by letting the landmine do the heavy lifting. So but yeah, there goes one. So I can pull up on the move log now and you can see Move 15 for white. C takes D5, pawn landmine. So that's the additional chess notation that's present in trap chess. And like I said earlier, there's also F for fizzle, which is like the one example of when a landmine doesn't activate and it gets removed from the board instead of taking a piece. Cool. So the landmine will stay on the board at 100% opacity until another move is made. You can see the locations of my landmines on the board, and you see how they're like a little see-through. I have them at, I think it's 65 or 70% opacity, so you can still see the square and the chess pieces on the square. If it's distracting to look at the landmines on the board, you can always do that and hide them. I like to play with them showing so I can explain what's going on and squares that will remove the pieces. That's just, I think it's better for education, and this way of playing is known as sight on, because you're able to see what's going on. So the first thing I see from that move my opponent made is the E6 square is a fork on the G7 rook and the D8 queen. However, the bishop on G4 is preventing me from doing that fork. So if I apply pressure on that bishop to the point that I'm able to get to that square, I can force my opponent to make a decision on what they want to save. So I'm going to go ahead and move my pawn up, attempting to apply pressure on that bishop, because they take my pawn. They get 1 point, I take back, I get 3. They take my knight, they get 3 points. If I take back, I get 3, so it's even. But then it leaves that E6 square open for a fork. In chess, there's something called tactics. Forks are a type of tactic. It means attacking more than one piece at the same time. So if you apply forks in your game, you force your opponent to make decisions on what they want to save. And forcing your opponent to make decisions is a great way to win the game. You can force them to make a decision that is less desirable for them by using forks or other tactics. All right, so let's see how my opponent deals with the threat from the H3 pawn on their bishop on G4. So Brian, do you play a lot of chess normally, or have you played in the past? The music really is addicting. It's a good like study. It's good study music. Oh, interesting. So the response was nice. Okay, so when we play, I'll use less landmines to give more of a game balance. Okay, so I'm going to go here. No landmine. Good. Okay, that applies pressure on the rook, and that checkmate is still being threatened if that rook isn't able to defend with the bishop on the G6 square. So now I have my bishop attacking the rook on G7. You know, rooks are worth more than bishops. So protecting it is ideal, or moving it to save it is ideal. But my opponent has to be careful because of that G6 move that's a checkmate. No, I understand. It's something you get better at when the more you play, like following the key notation. Totally makes sense. The more you play, the easier it is to get, like the easier it is to like see it and get used to it. Oh, interesting. Now, that move was extra aggressive, but I do have my knight on C5 that can take the queen back on D3. So I think I'm going to go with that. Yeah, the notation is like secondary. So when you're playing a lot of chess, you get better at the notation over time. But you don't really have to worry about it. It's something that I'm also still getting better at because I've never really had to be like this square to this square, this square to this square until I started doing this. You know, okay. take back, bring out our queen. Yeah, actually the statistic I believe in the US is 83% of households have a chessboard, Brian. So, and thanks. I hope I'm a guru. I was a chess teacher for a long time, but I just, I didn't play for a while. And then I came up with this, and I've been trying to play more, but I've been doing more education, and trying to win versus trying to educate people are like two different things, you know? Yeah, my opponent went for that bishop earlier with their queen just to block that checkmate, but now I have an open line directly to their king. So I'm going to go over here and check. Okay, good. No landmine. I could have hit a queen landmine and lost my queen there. So that leaves only one move for my opponent. They'll have to move their king to d8. And then I don't see a continuation to win for checkmate, unfortunately. I do have my bishop on e5. So that could go to like c7, but their knight is protecting that square. And then they'll have their king and their knight both protecting it. And I only have the two attackers. So if I go there, they take with the knight. If I take with the queen, they take back with the king. And I'm down a queen. So that's not the most ideal. Let's see. Yeah, so far there's only been one landmine activation. That was for a pawn. Last time I played, I think right off the bat, I lost like... I was playing this week and I lost a knight right off the bat, which was a lot. Okay. We're going to go start bringing the pressure in. So this opens up a couple possibilities. I could go knight to b7, which would be checkmate. Or I could go knight to e6, which is also checkmate. If my opponent takes the knight, I have the option of bishop to c7, which is check, and then my opponent has to go to c8, and then I can back out the bishop and go to like b5 or b6 or a5, and then bring the queen in to go for mate, because the knight at that point will be on the c5 square, so I can have the bishop protect the queen, and then go for the king. So there's like options right now. Having a good time playing. Thank you for playing with me. It means a lot. You know, I worked really hard on this project, and okay, and it's amazing to see how far it's come. I didn't think I'd be able to build my own app before the board game came out, but manufacturing takes a long time to set up. All right, we'll go here. Good game. So now we get to see the locations of all of the traps. So I'm going to hide the pieces, and we can see. So A5 and H6 had queen landmines that would remove my queen. C5 and C8 had rook ones that would have taken out my rook. And then the knight ones were on F6 and A7, and the bishop ones were H8 and B8. So my bishops were actually pretty safe, because I didn't really fall in line with that. I did have my bishop at one point on B2, trying to go for that rook on H8, and if I had taken it, I would have had my bishop lost as well. But rooks are worth more points, so I would have just lost picked up 2 points. So okay, what I'll do is I'll generate a new play code. Good game. Thank you for playing with me. I'll generate a new code. I'll put it in the chat, and if you enter the code, you'll be able to play with me. Boom. And what I'll do is I will decrease my landmines all the way down to 1. Okay. And I see where my landmine is, so I know where it is. I'm going to commit that to memory because I only have 1. And we'll see if we can get an activation on that 1 landmine. And then I'll make my first move. Cool. Thanks for playing with me, and it looks like the opponent has joined. You can tell when someone joins because you have the, I call it the timer bar, where it says like the number of landmines. It has a little bomb symbol. Then if it's white or black, and then it has the timer. There's also that little pulsating like thing right by landmines. That pulsating tells you it's your turn. Also with your timer ticking down, you can see it's your turn. So right off the bat, I could go F1 to B5 and take a pawn. However, I'm going to abstain, considering it may be a trap and I would lose a bishop immediately. So I'm just going to go B2 to B3 and open up to have my bishop go to B2 and own that that dark colored square diagonal right through the center of the board. That's the goal. And if you have any questions about chess in general or trap chess, please feel free to ask. I'd love to answer any questions. All right, so now that bishop is targeting my pawn, I'm going to go ahead and protect it. Normally, it's not in your best interest to open up the king on the king side. So people recommend not going and moving the F2 pawn. Or if you're playing black, the F7 pawn. However, I feel like it's a good way to protect my king, and my opponent currently doesn't have an attack on the dark colored square for me to worry about that. Is this you I'm playing, Brian, or someone else? Now there's an attack on the dark colored square I have to worry about. So, but that's okay. Yeah, nice. All right, we're going to keep going with that plan. I'll just, I'll take over with that B2. I'll take that dark colored diagonal right through the center. Cool. Yeah, so there's a lot of possibilities. So chess is really unique in the fact that the starting move, you have, I think it's 20 possibilities of moves you can make, and that changes over time the more and more moves you make, which is pretty cool. So trap chess, though, the number of possibilities increases even more because of the presence of the landmines. So, all right, looks like you want to do some attacking here. I'll go ahead and take. You could take back. If you take back, it opens up the king on the E file, so I could check with my queen. I don't think I'm going to do that, though, because then you could block with your queen, and then we're just trading queens. And I really like my queen, and you have more traps than I do, which makes it harder for me. So, okay, so I see a pretty good continuation here based on that move. So I see you went F8 to C5. So the next move you might make is C5 to G1, take my knight. When I take back, I have to take with the rook on H1. You could go queen to H4, checking me. Now, if my rook is on G1, the pawn on H2 isn't protected, so you would check, fork me for that pawn. I have to go move my king or go G2 to G3. Then you put your queen on H2 because my rook isn't protecting it. And that corners the rook that's now on G1 because of the work your bishop did taking that knight. So that's a continuation you have. That's a possibility. So I see that. I'm going to go ahead and do something to block that. I'll just do that. So it blocks you from going to that square now, but it doesn't really stop what you could do. So you could go ahead and do that. No, you should get my tips. I'd love to teach you. That's a really good tip. So try it if you want. You could go take the knight on G1, and I'll show you. I didn't really block it. So then you can take the pawn on H4 for free, and it forces a check on me. Yeah, you have options here. Now, something you should be aware of too is my bishop on B2 is targeting your G7 pawn. Your G7 pawn right now has no protection because you moved your bishop off of F8. So if I take that G7 pawn, I can immediately go in that corner next turn and get your rook. And the rook is worth 5 points and the bishop is only worth 3. So that is a possibility for me that you should be aware of as well. No, I'm happy you're playing with me. Thanks for trying it. Okay, here we go. All right. I'm going to save that knight and move it out of danger. That pawn on g7 was still free, but I decided not to take it. Hey, unconventional methods can work in trap chess. I could go for something and boom, there goes a powerful piece of mine, you know? I'm going to go ahead and check that. Cool. I'm just considering some of the possibilities here. So that knight you have is targeting my pawn also on f5. So you could take that pretty much for free. If you wanted, there's nothing protecting it, which is totally fine. Yeah, I'm happy to play with you and teach. If you have any questions, like, go ahead and ask. You can even ask what I would do on the next move. I'm not the best chess player in the world, but I do enjoy playing, and I think I'm decent at chess. I don't know what my rating is. I'm unrated. Everyone always says, "Oh, what's your ELO? What's your rating? What's your rating?" I'm like, I don't know. It doesn't matter. That stuff doesn't matter. Yeah. Oh. You're giving me your queen? That bishop on b2 is straight up targeting that queen. I can't say no to this one. I gotta take it. We're going for it. All right, and no landmine there. So you could totally take me back, though. Thanks for the gift. Let's see. Okay. Because I'm going to lose that pawn anyway, I'm just going to start attacking with it and try to have it do as much damage as possible. Let's see. Yep. So now it's gone. I'm going to go here. Oof. Looks like there's a storm brewing outside. The wind got really crazy. I hear it and I hear kids outside going, "Ah!" because I think they just got stuck in the rain. They didn't expect this. Just look outside and there's a kid blowing down the street. Just getting just rolling down the street from the wind. I'm kidding. That didn't happen. There's no one rolling down the street from the wind. But there could be. I didn't look outside. I didn't check. So, okay, let's take a look here. So, I'm going to bring out some of my other pieces. In chess, if you bring out your other pieces, it actually gives you more possibilities for moves. So, bringing out your pieces earlier is ideal. The more possibilities you have, the more attacks you can launch, the more defenses you can have. So I'm going to start moving some of my pieces. All right, you want to hurt my knight, even though my knight is super friendly. All right, we're going to protect that knight with my own rook. Now, if the knight is taken, you would get 3 points, and if I take you back, take your rook, I would get 5. So it's more advantageous for me in that situation, which is why I don't have to worry about you taking my knight. Now, that's extra attack on my knight. I'm going to have to deal with that. So I'm going to put my knight here. And something you should be aware of is when the knight is there, the f6 square is now open for a fork. So if I move my knight to the f6 square, your king is in danger because it's in check. But your rook is also in danger. So you would have to pick which one you want to save. And the rules of chess say you have to save your king. So then I would take the rook in response. I would get 5 points. If you took me back, you would get 3. So you should be aware of that f6 square being a threat right now. A couple ways to block it would be to move your king, protect the square with your knight or one of your knights or your bishop. Your one knight actually on the side of the board. The one on h6 can't protect the square without getting taken. because the only square I could go to is G3 or G4, and that's protected by my pawn. Okay, so let's see what else we can do. I'm going to do another tactic now. So if I move my bishop to the B5 square, this is what's called a pin. A pin means you can't move a piece because a more valuable piece would be taken. So now that knight can't move because your king would be taken, which means that F6 square threat is still present. Because the moment I move to F6, it's a fork. Oh, you're pushing me away. Okay, so what we're going to do then is I'll take the knight. That'll be a check. Then best move for you is to move your king. You have to move your king. If you take the bishop, I can still do the fork. Does this all make sense? No. No? No landmine? Cool. Yeah, it makes sense, right? We can play again after this too. I'll put a code in the chat. So anyone that wants to play can play. What's oh, Noah's to the knight? Yeah. Yeah, the knight got stuck. And it all started because that pawn on the B5 square wasn't protected. That's the interesting thing. When you make moves, make sure you keep your pieces protected. And if you're keeping them protected, it makes it harder for me to do these things. Yeah, it's what happens. It's okay. You're learning. I'm surprised I haven't hit a landmine yet, though. I have to say that. It's blowing me away that I haven't hit one. All right. I'm going to move my queen out for the first time. Try to bring her into the action. It's a two-part reason. One, my pawn on G2 wasn't protected. Putting my queen there protects it from your rook on G8. Now that my knight had been moved off of that G3 square where it was originally protected when you put your pawn on F4. So this protects my pawn. It also targets the pawn on the E6 square. If that pawn won't be able to take anything because it's pinned. To take, it would have to go to F5 or D5. And if it does that, then my queen has a direct shot on your king. I have a friend right now that's in Portugal. I went to Portugal within the last year, and I have to say, I had this pizza there. It blew me away. It was a butter chicken pizza. It was an Indian-Italian restaurant, like a mashup, and they had butter chicken pizza. And I was like, I never thought of that as a thing. And then I tried it, and it was absolutely amazing. Couldn't believe it. That place had, I think it had a 5-star review with like only like a few dozen reviews because it was new, but man, so good. Makes me want to travel again. Okay, let's see. All right, I'm going to do that thing they call castling. Castling is a great way to bring your rook out, but it's kind of a double-edged sword because you're putting your king in the corner and all pieces are weakest in the corner. Right? Doesn't it? I never thought like butter chicken pizza like as a thing, and then I saw it on a menu and I was like, that's what I want. And I think I ate almost the entire pie. It was really good. And butter chicken itself, I think they use yogurt in it, and I'm used to yogurt in food now. Growing up, I never really ate a lot of yogurt, but my wife cooks with yogurt a lot, and it makes like the food more tender, like the meat more tender. It's really good. She makes lamb, and she makes it in an oven bag, and I think she sets it at like a couple different temps, cooks it for several hours, and with the oven bag, she fills it with like yogurt, garlic cloves, different spices, and it's just absolutely delicious and so tender. Okay, let's see. All right, so I want to point out like a pattern thing I know about knights. So do you see how the knight is on F5 and I have my rook on H3? There's one square between them diagonally, the G4 square. Now, if I were to look at if you could threaten my rook on H3, knowing there's one square diagonal between your knight and my rook, if I'm just looking at that knight, your knight won't be able to attack the H3 square until it makes 3 moves. So my rook is really safe from your knight there, and anything I would have on the d3 square would also be safe. I'm going to go ahead and try to line up an attack. So first, I'm going to do a fork here. I'm going to put my knight on the e4 square. Putting it on the e4 square targets your king, so you're in check. And it also targets the bishop on c5. So the bishop on c5 is not protected. So if you save your king, I'll be able to take it. You do have the ability to take the knight to prevent me from getting a free bishop if you use your bishop on the b7 square. And then I'll be able to take back with either my pawn on f3 or my queen on e2. I hope that's easy to follow. I know since you don't play a lot of chess, I might be going too fast. If I am, just tell me to slow down. And then I'll talk like this. Cool. My wife asked me what I want for dinner, and I was like, butter chicken pizza, and she was like, try again. I was like, why? She's like, they don't have that here. I was like, I would love a butter chicken pizza right now. So good, right? So okay. So now there's another tactic in chess. Earlier I did that one which was a pin. The pin was you couldn't move a piece because a more valuable piece would be taken. A pin is actually a type of tactic. The main category is called an X-ray attack. An X-ray attack is where a piece is attacking through another piece. So I'll give you an example. My knight on e4 is blocking my queen from attacking straight through on the e-file to your king on e5. So the moment I move my knight out of the way, your king is in danger because I've opened up the X-ray attack. So if I do that, it's check, so you have to save your king by the queen, but my knight was able to attack a piece and take it, and now it's attacking your bishop on b7. So I force you to deal with the threat from the queen while I'm able to use my knight to attack a separate piece. Does that make sense? Okay, you block with the knight, and I'm going to go for the bishop in the on b7. Now, I don't have to worry about the knight taking my rook on d1 because it's pinned, which is another form of X-ray attack that we talked about earlier. If the knight moves, a more valuable piece is in danger, which is the king on the e5 square. Whoa, it's just like a downpour out there. And thanks for playing with me, Brian. I appreciate it. It's I'm having a good time playing with you. Okay. Well, that's tricky. Did you guys see that? My lights, like that's the weather. Okay, I'm gonna move my queen to safety. I mean, I know it's from the weather that my lights are going in and out, but I still think it's kind of cool. It would be cool if I could time it where it's like, check. Thanks. Yeah, no, it's. I mean, I think we needed the rain. It's been so hot, right? Like, whew. I do too. I like weather just in general, you know. Yeah, so today I watched this stream of this guy playing chess, and he said he likes the weather. So lame. He likes weather. Yeah, well, there was that one movie. I think Paul Rudd had that quote. He's like, "The weather outside is weather," and I just I like to quote that every so often. People are like, "Yeah, it is weather." Yeah, good catch, man. Good scene. That it's weather. All right, there goes my pineapple drink. Now we're just stuck with the water drink. Okay, so now doing that means the knight can move. So I will want to get that knight out of action though. Yeah, moving the knight, moving that allowed you to move the knight. Attacking my queen made it so I couldn't take the knight right away, so I had to wait a turn to save the queen. But yeah, so now that the knight is out of action, I can start trying to go for checkmate. We'll go check with the pawn. So I've been playing in a way where I'm avoiding moving to your side as much as possible because I know you have 16 traps. So I noticed early on in the game you were pretty aggressive. Being aggressive and coming to my side means that I can target your pieces on my side and not really worry about the traps as much. So it makes it so I can like circumvent and avoid that risk associated with those traps. So if you'd like to play again, if you play more defensively, I'll have to go through your squares in an attempt to go after your king or your pieces, which increases the risk I have and increases the likelihood that I do hit a trap and I lose some pieces from those traps. Okay. Good game. So let's take a look at where your traps were. Okay, so you had a queen 1 on e8. You had a queen 1 on b6. Your pawn ones were kind of far back. When you get them on the front line and people hit them right away, it opens up so much for you. I had one on the b4 square for bishops. And then your bishop ones were g5 and e6. Your rook ones were g8 and c7. And your knight ones were h6 and b5. Okay, cool. Good game. I'm going to throw up another code in the chat, so whoever wants to play can play. Y8MGQ1. I'll join. Good games. And I'll do one landmine. I think I'll start doing one, and then when I lose a game, I'll increase it and make it 2. So, okay, and I'll make the first move. We'll just do that. So, I set my stream at super low latency, and that makes it so that it should just be a few seconds before when I'm saying something and when it appears. However, I think because of the weather, it's actually delayed a little bit more. I think it's delayed by about a minute. Which is totally fine, but just letting you know. Okay, thanks for joining. You got your full 16. Ah, okay. We're doing this right away. Be careful. I'm going right after that rook. That rook is my prey. So you have to find a way to protect it. Let's see. Okay, so I'm going to do this. Now, the thought process behind me putting my knight on c3 is the knight is blocking the bishop, right? So the moment I move my knight, it opens up an x-ray attack for the bishop to attack through. So my knight will be able to attack a square or a piece or something, you know, a little bit further into the game when I move it. And then the bishop will be hitting all of those squares, the c3 square, the d4 square, and the e5 square, and the f6 square. So if I play it well, and I like make moves that make you like move things around, I can use my knight to attack something while the bishop is attacking something else. So as long as you're protecting your pieces well, it shouldn't be a problem. But just letting you know, that's why the knight move was made. I hope that helps so you can kind of see the logic behind it. That's my thought process anyway. With chess, I never read any books or reviewed any old games. I didn't learn any openings. I just focused on playing when I played a lot. and I got good by recognizing like patterns and these little things. And then I just focused on getting good at forks and pins and skewers. Skewer is the opposite of a pin. It's where you attack a piece, and when they move it, you take a weaker piece behind it. So that's kind of what I did with chess and how I got better at it. Just focusing on those tactics. All right, I'm going to go ahead and secure a little bit of the center of the board because pieces are strongest there by moving my pawn there. It also has my bishop on f1, blocking your rook from coming out on a6. The bishop is worth 3, the rook is worth 5, so if you try to bring it out, I'll take it, and I'll get a net of 2 points on that. Yeah, thanks. Yeah. I think that working on those tactics and just practicing them makes you a much better player. Also, it helps you see them when your opponent's laying them out, because they're the main things that people do to try to force opponents to make decisions they don't want to make. You know, like force them to make a move that might not be the most beneficial. Another thing I do is I look for weaknesses on the board and squares that are weak, and then I see if there's any way I can get to that square or target it. I look for spots on the board where my opponent isn't protecting enough, and if I see those squares and I'm able to target them, then I'm able to break through like walls and get closer to their king or taking other important pieces. All right, tactic. Okay, I think what I want to do here, I'm going to do something. I'm going to put that bishop there. I'm going to target your knight on g8. So like for instance, if that g6 pawn ever moves up, I can do that thing I talked about earlier where I take the knight on g8, you take back with the rook, queen goes to h5, check. You block the check, I take the pawn on h7, and your rook is in danger. You do have the ability, if I do something like that, of putting your rook on g7, because in this situation it would be protected by the bishop on f8. So, but there's options. So I'm just looking ahead at the future for moves like that, or things that may occur based on the moves you make as well. I feel like the best way to play chess, from my perspective, is if you focus on taking away your opponent's good moves, eventually you'll just break through. So by being a little aggressive but reserved while watching what your opponent does, you're able to really apply those tactics and force your opponent into things they don't want to do, or things that are more beneficial for yourself. Yeah, and take your time with your moves. We have plenty of time. Because the weather's bad, I might call it at like 7. I also pretty tired, so I didn't get a lot of sleep last night. My cat did this thing where it was like 6 in the morning, and I usually get up. I went to bed after 5, actually 5 a.m. And it was like 6:30 in the morning, and I'd fallen asleep finally. And my cat decided to sleep on my pillow, and then she walked across my head in the middle of the night, and then she slipped and panicked, and she scratched me on the top of my head by accident, and it was not nice. It woke me up. I normally don't go to bed that late. I usually go to bed, I don't know, like 11:30, but yeah, last night ended up going to bed a little later. My wife is she wasn't feeling well, so I was trying my best. Let's see here. Okay, so I see that pawn move. It looks like you're setting up to do pawn from d7 to d5, or a pawn from b7 to b5 to push my bishop out of there, which is good. It's good to see that you're planning something like that. If you go like d7 to d5, you have your queen on d8 and your pawn on c6 protecting the d5 square. However, I have 3 pieces that can attack there. I have my pawn on e4, my bishop on c4 and my knight on c3. So since I have more pieces attacking that square than you would have defending, if we played it out, I'd eventually win the square. And then to top it off, one of the pieces you have it defending is your queen, which is really powerful. And if I win the square, that means I would win your queen. So the d7 to d5 move is not that good of a move. However, the b7 to b5 is better if you're trying to target my bishop, because I only have my bishop and my knight protecting that b5 square. So if I take, you take, I take, yeah, I'll win the square, but I'll lose, I'll get 2 pawns for the price of a knight or a bishop. So you'll be up 1 point. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put extra protection with my a4 pawn on the b5 square. So if you move there, now I have 3 pieces defending, so I can go pawn first, then knight or bishop, and it'll be me getting 2 points and you only getting 1 point. Does that make sense? Have you ever played the game of Risk, actually? Risk is a game that I reference when talking about chess, because in Risk, if you're defending, you roll 2 dice. And if you're attacking, you can roll up to 3 dice, right? Like at the high level, 3 and 2. And then you pair the numbers against each other. So the person defending, if they roll like a 6 and a 4, and the person attacking rolls like a 6, 5, and a 3, the 6s go against each other, and the tie goes to the defense, and then the 5 beats the 4. Yeah, if you remember just a small percentage of what I'm saying, it'll make you a better player. I know it's a lot of info, but I'm just saying a lot of things, because chess is a pretty complicated and deep game. So in Risk, though, the tie goes to the defense. It's the same in chess. When you're talking about a square, it's a piece of territory, right? And if you have more pieces attacking that square than I have defending it, you will win the square. If I have more pieces defending it, equal or more pieces defending than you have attacking, I will take the square. So if you have 3 attackers on the square, I have 3 defending, I win the square if we play it all out with all the takes. If you have 3 attacking, I have 2 defending, you win the square if we play it out with all the takes. Then when you mix in the points, if some of the points being used to attack or defend are higher value than the other points, there's a difference. But if all the points are the same, then you can be like, okay, like I'm defending, it'll be an even swap, and then I win the square, and I'm okay with that. Yeah, it's a lot to take in. That's just something you'll notice the more you play. It kind of gives you like a shortcut. You look at it and you go, okay, I got 2 defending it. They have 2 attacking it. I'm okay because I have 2 defending. Can they get a 3rd attacker there? They can. Okay, let me preemptively put a 3rd defender here, So there's like, it depends on the square too. And chess is a game where it only matters about taking 1 piece. So sometimes you'll do that and you're playing it out, and then you're like, okay, perfect. They move that piece, and then you come in with another piece and you just ignore that square completely and go for the king. So there's like different ways you would do it, but Risk is a great way, that game, like playing it, just tie goes to the defense when you're targeting a square and trying to protect it. Yeah, I know it's a lot to take in, but thanks for lending me your ear on it, because I know it's a lot, but if you remember a little bit, you'll definitely get better. And I see you're being much more careful this game and playing much better than the previous game. And thanks again for playing with me. I'm really enjoying this. So let's see. Okay. So now I'm trying to figure out that move more looks like it's to block my queen from coming out to the g4 square, which is okay. I wasn't really planning on bringing her in there. But what I will do is, so I'm looking at the board. You have a pawn on e5 attacking the d4 square. You don't have any other pieces attacking that d4 square. So I don't have anything defending it. But I see it as a weakness and a way to break through your protection. So I'm going to put my knight on f3. And putting my knight on f3 allows me to attack that square. Next, I can go pawn to d4. And then I have 2 pieces defending the d4 square, and you only have 1 attacking it, so I know I'm safe. Then if I decide to take on e5, you would take back with f5, but it also breaks up your pawn structure a little bit, because now your pawns aren't defending one another if I start taking them out. So that's kind of my plan. Not only that, if I'm able to go from d4 to e5, it opens up my queen to come out on the d rank, or sorry, d file. She can come straight up, and she attacks a lot of squares. So these moves are moves that give me options for the future, is what I'm basically trying to say. I'm setting up options. I'm also trying to block your good moves, and I see you moving that knight to g4 as a possibility, so I'll block it with my pawn. It doesn't really block it. It does. Because if you take... I have one piece defending the g4 square, and you have... or one piece attacking the g4 square, and you have one defending it with your h5 pawn. So, and then there's like, you know, like I said in chess, you open up x-ray attacks, right? So if you just happen to go knight to g4, I would take your knight, I would get 3 points. You would take my pawn back and get 1 point. So I'm up 2 points. But then my pawn on h3, your pawn on h5, and your knight on h6 aren't there anymore. So my rook would come down from h1 to h8 and take your rook. So I'd actually be up 2 points plus a rook, which is 7. And that's a big difference. Let's take a look. Okay. So I have my knight defending the e4 pawn, so I'm not too concerned if you take. So I'm going to follow through with my plan with that pawn I was talking about earlier. So I like that my knight on f3 is also blocking your queen from going to g5 or h4. It gives me good defense. Let's take a look here. Cool. Yeah, so there's a lot going on in this board right now. We haven't had any activations because I don't think I've crossed to your side at all this entire game, and I don't think... Have any pieces even been taken? No. This is a good game. There's a lot going on, and no pieces have been taken. I haven't crossed to your side because I'm terrified of your landmines. They're so scary. You know what's really funny? The first person that was playing, I know them, and their name is Jim, and then you joined, and you're Jim's brother. So for a second, I was like, hold on. Let's see. What are you thinking about doing next? We can talk it out if you want. I'm looking at one thing. I'll point out one of the things I'm looking at. So that I still have my bishop set up on b2 and my knight on c3. So by attacking the dark colored squares in the middle, like the d4 and the e5, like I am, I'm still setting up that that direct shot from the bishop from b2 to the h8 rook. So it's something you should be aware of in the future. Not right now. You don't have to address it now. But I am like lining up all those pieces to own that diagonal right through the middle of the board and go right to the other side where you have a powerful piece. It's not all bad. I'm actively trying to take away your good moves though. But you still have some moves. I think what's hurting you the most is, yeah, on that one side, you haven't really advanced any of your pieces. You've just been doing your pawns. Whereas if you look at my side, I've been advancing as many pieces as I can. Okay, we'll do it. Landmine. Nice. So now the landmine removes the piece, so you don't have to take it. However, that does open up that diagonal for me. Nice. I lost a pawn to your landmine. That's awesome. Oh, my landmine, by the way? It's completely useless. If you get a pawn across the board, it gets promoted. And in this version of Trap Chess, it checks for a trap after the promotion. So my pawn landmine is on F1. You put a pawn there, it's not going to be a pawn anymore by the time it checks the landmine. So mine is pretty much useless. Okay. So now what I would like to do is I would like to move. So I'm just going to, I'll keep it there. I would like to move my knight so it protects my bishop on B2, my knight on C3, but both of the squares I could go to protect it are blocked because I have my pawn on A4 and my queen on D1. Because if I did that, you can't take the bishop because it's protected by the knight. So you'd have to, and it's attacking your queen. You'd have to move your queen out of the way. When you do that, I would go straight for the rook. It's called a skewer, where you attack a strong piece, a more valuable piece. They move it out of the way. You take the weaker one. It's the opposite of a pin, which is you attack a weaker one, then you take the more valuable one behind it if they move it, because they can't move the weaker one. So I would be careful with that, because that queen move, you set up a direct line to your queen and your rook. So if I'm able to protect that bishop, you're in trouble, which I can. I'm going to go there, and that protects the bishop now. So as soon as I move that knight, your queen is in danger. The moment you save that queen, your rook is taken. Do you see it? Does that make sense? That makes sense, right? You see it? That C3 knight, yeah, is blocking that really bad situation for you. Especially now that the bishop on B2 is protected by my queen. Totally get it. I saw it, so I'm pointing out that I saw it, and now it creates a new position where the plan won't work with the follow through unless you have some sort of backup plan that helps. Cool. Yeah, that makes sense. I also have my queen on C1, which is targeting your knight on H6. And so if you bring out other pieces and drop the protection on it, I can go for that. Okay, I think it's time I do that castling thing. So I don't like that I'm kind of weak in the middle, and you could go for me. So I'm gonna castle. That'll bring my rook out too, so I can use it. And then if need be, I can always bring my queen to like F4 to protect that right side of the board to give myself extra protection. Because right now I have a pretty strong defense over there with my pawns and my knight and my queen lined up like that. Because your knight can't really come in. If you try to move your queen in, my knight can grab it. So I have a good defense on that side. Yeah, so there's a lot going on this board. It's a much better game than we were having before, so I'm having a great time. Interesting. I would have kept the rook where it was, and I would have focused on maybe getting some other pieces out, like your knight or your bishops. Let's see. No, it's not a blunder. Yeah. It's not a blunder. I wouldn't call it like a blunder, but I would say there were definitely better moves. Which is okay. You're learning, you know? Take what? There's nothing I can take there. You mean the knight on H6? It's still protected by your bishop on F8. So I won't take the knight. But I can... Let's go. Take that. No trap. Cool. What? No. Oh, you're trying to trick me. I'm very, very sneaky, sir. Yeah, you still got that bishop on F8. I'm not falling for that. I'll take that pawn. Taking that pawn opens up your king because the entire e file is now open. So I think I can bring my rook into play or my queen to check. Let's see how I want to do this. I can go queen to like e3, which is a nice square to be on, because that opens up the b6 square, which is a weakness for your rook on c7. I could go rook to e1 to check your king. I have options. One of the biggest threats right now I see is that your queen has a decent like access to the right side, but now that that rook is like kind of out of the way, I don't really have to worry about my king much. So I'm going to, yeah, if I go queen there, you'll block with the rook, and then I have to move my queen out of the way. All right, we're gonna offer you a queen trade. I'm gonna do that. Brings my knight closer. I like that. Another move I had, it was a good move, was if I went like knight from c3 to b5, I'd be attacking your rook, offering up a potential fork, because when I take the rook, it's a check on your king, and then the rook in the corner is in danger. But when I move that knight, you'd have to save your queen. You see that? I decided to not do that, but we'll trade queens. That's okay. The game is going pretty well. We're pretty close right now. No problem. This is this is fine. We're having a great game. So, okay. Let's start bringing the rooks in. So I'll go for a check. Yeah, so I want to bring my rooks in. They're pretty strong, and like that entire e file is now open, so getting my rook there is pretty great. Okay. Just looking at the possibilities. I want to let's bring my other rook into play. So I'm moving that rook up to the e3 square, specifically so, okay, you don't like my knight. Thought we were friendly. Thought you liked my knights. Okay, we're gonna protect it. I want to keep that knight there. I don't want you to take it. I don't want you to make me move it. I want it right there. I have 2 checks I can do with that spot. You have protection there, but I have a lot of pieces. Like, for instance, I have the bishop on c4 attacking the e6 square. That's where my knight can go. Oh, you really don't like that knight. Thought you guys were going to be like good friends, and now I'm watching all this rubbish. It's terrible. Okay. Go. Where are we going to go? Where are we going to go? I know what we're going to do. We'll go there. So the knight is in danger from the pawn on c6, but it opened up the x-ray attack from the bishop on b2, targeting your rook. So now we have a complicated position for you to take a look at. Take your time. Think it through. Because like the way it would go is like if you take knight, I take rook, you take bishop, I take knight. So I would be up 8. Then you take pawn, and I'd probably take the pawn. Yeah, that rook is just in a spot where my knight can't do anything, so I'm trying to apply pressure on it. It's also kind of stuck because it can't go side to side because of the knight. It can go forward or backward pretty much only if you're trying to save it. Yeah, I'm trying to take away like all your good moves, like I said. So like if you don't take the knight and you save the rook, then I have the move where I go knight from d5 to b6, which forks your rook and your bishop. Your bishop is protected though on c8 by your king, but the rook isn't protected. And then the rook can't go to a6 because the bishop on c4. So it would have to go to a7 to save it, and that's not an ideal square because it's kind of stuck, you know? You have your pawn in the way, and then my knight is preventing you from moving that pawn. So essentially it's like taking the rook out of the game without taking it. If that makes sense. Interesting. You chose to just say, forget about the rook. Okay. We're going to go for the rook. Boom. Deal. Okay. Now I'm going to go... take out that bishop. I don't want that bishop there. Oh. All right, we're going to take out that other bishop. They're all in my way. Oh. See? Check. You opened up the fork. I'm surprised I only hit one landmine this game. Yeah, the rooks are pretty powerful when like there's less pieces on the board. Rooks are stuck in the corner, so the first move a rook can make puts it either on the side of the board or the corner, which are, like we talked about, weak spots for the piece. But once so it's hard to get them out too, because they're really good when they can like travel. But now that the game has like gotten closer to the end game, they can travel a lot easier, which makes it so that they're really powerful right now. All right, we're gonna try to set up here to go for that knight. Yeah, so I'm setting up my rooks where if I go from rook e1 to e8, it applies pressure on your king, and then it's only your king there defending that knight. So now I have two attackers on it by x-ray attacking through your king to the knight, and having my other knight, I can actually have my pieces protect each other. See? And next I could go rook b8 to b7, which would be targeting the knight as well. But you moved your king, so instead we'll go and we'll check with the knight. Once there's less pieces in the way, you can always do this like alternating thing with the rooks, where you just cut off like an escape route from the king, and you can push the king to a corner or to the side of the board and checkmate. I feel like you played really well this game, by the way, compared to before. There was just a part where you started blundering a little bit, and that's... But up until that point, you were doing really well. So I'd be proud of how you played this game. Where are your rook landmines? Oh, yeah. Your rook traps are completely away from where my rooks would ever go, so that makes sense that you resigned. Really good game. I had a great time playing you there. You did a lot better than last game. That was awesome. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to generate one more code, throw it in the chat. 189 TWN. And then we can play one more game. So I'll take one landmine like I was before. And I'm going to see. Okay. Once again, it's going to be a useless landmine. It's on G1. So, yeah, thanks for playing. Good game. If you're just joining us, you can join, download the app, enter the code, and you can play a game with me live. You can also, if you have the app, feel free to like send codes or send it to a friend if you want to play with them anytime. Each side is 12 hours to play, so you can play at your leisure. Anyway, I have one landmine here, and it's on G1. It's a pawn landmine. So a pawn will promote to a new piece before it checks for the landmine. That's how it's programmed for trap chess right now. So this landmine is completely useless. With the board game, you get to choose if you want to check before or after promotion. So do you want to play one more, by the way? I'm down to play one more game before I call it. I think it kind of looks like the weather cleared up a little bit too, so my lights won't be going in and out. So looks cool. All right, last game. Who's playing? If you want to play one more, Brian, you did a really great job on that last game. So yeah, I'm only taking one. So yeah, I'm only taking one landmine. When I lose a game, I'll increase it to 2. You can take 16 though. 16 is the maximum, so it'll hide a landmine for every single piece. And an extra one for the queen. The reason there's 2 queen landmines in this version is because all right, cool, thanks. The reason there's 2 queen landmines is because everyone probably wants an extra shot at taking out their opponent's strongest piece. So I'll do a different opening move this time. I got to be real careful. Yeah, so when I do the Friday videos and Stockfish play Stockfish, I do it a different game mode than this. I have it so that any landmine can remove either player's piece. Doing it that way leads to more activations because I hide them all on the board at random. So I don't know where they are. So like right off the first move, you could be like, boom, move my pawn. Boom, goodbye pawn. All right, move my knight. Boom, goodbye knight. And it gets you like really interesting board positions. It's pretty fun. So, all right, I want to point out the F2 to F4 pawn or F7 to F5 pawn is the weakest pawn to move at the start of the game. The reason being, let's say I had gone E2 to E4 instead. Now I put my queen from D1 on H5, right? You only can block by going G7 to G6. And when you do that, I then put my bishop from F1 to E2. And most people will take the queen because it's a free queen, and then you go bishop to h5 and it's checkmate. So you give up your queen and you win. That pawn is the weakest one to move. Just giving you a heads up for the future. And I'll do that to put the threat there of that scenario I just talked about. No, that's what you're learning. That's what's happening. It feels that way because you haven't played in a while, and also I'm a teacher, so I'm going to point out things to try to help you get better. But no, you're learning. That's totally normal. I wouldn't beat yourself up over it. Yeah, but take a look at what I can do now with that bishop. I could go bishop there, you block with the G6 pawn, then I take that pawn, it's game over. So you would have to take with your rook if I take you on H5. There you go. Perfect. Protect it. Be proactive, not reactive. Perfect. Good move. Good move. All right, I'm going to abandon that whole thing now that that knight is there. And good move. That knight protecting that pawn. So now if you look, I have 1, 2 pieces attacking it. You have 1, 2 defending it. Tie goes to the defense. I took your pawn with my bishop. I get 1 point. You would take back with your knight. You would get 3. If I took with my queen, I would get 3, and then you'd take my queen. And you would own that square and have a rook there. Good move, Brian. That was the best move you could make to protect it. You could have moved your pawn up too. Because then I can't go to that square without you taking it, but no, moving the pawn up wouldn't have worked. Protecting with the knight was your best option. Yeah, see, I feel like you're getting better. The most learning on anything happens in the beginning. That's when you make the most mistakes and you learn the most. And then everything after that is like incremental, and the increments get like shorter, like smaller and smaller. That's just how learning works. So you're doing a really good job. Yeah, I want to get some of my other pieces out early, so I'm going to be focusing on moving like my bishop, my knights. It gives me more options for things I can do for like attacks and whatnot. Yeah, I'm wondering if I'm going to hit any landmines this game. I think last game was only 1 landmine, so we'll see if we can get a couple more. I'm going to be playing defensively until I start doing my attacks like I've been doing, because the moment I cross to your side, I have that risk. And if I can mitigate that risk by, playing slower and being more defensive, that's a solid way to play. I'm thinking right now, and that G6 square, if I can get a bishop there, that's checkmate. That's what I'm thinking about right now. So just pointing that out for you, so you know that that's checkmate if I get to G6. You do have pawns in the way though, but the pawn on F5 isn't protected. Excuse me. Good job. Okay, now it's protected. But I'm still gonna try to set something up here to go for it. There's always options. That's what makes chess great. You have so many moves, and some are better than others. And there's always usually like a top move you can make. But those top moves exist more later in the game. Early in the game, it's kind of like, okay, where are we going? What are we doing? Yeah, so the best chess player in the world, Magnus Carlsen, he's really good at finding those top moves later in the game. And chess is a game where they play based on timers, like time. So when your time's getting low, it's easy to make mistakes because you have less time to think, you have less time to analyze things, and that's where a lot of mistakes come. And he's just really good in coming up with the best moves, even though his time is ticking down. He works really well under pressure, and that's why he's stayed at the pinnacle of chess for so long. Okay. We're going to start moving some of our other pieces out, like I said. Moving those out will give us the ability to hit more squares and have more options for things. Excuse me. How do you feel about your moves so far? Yeah, make me come to you. Increase the likelihood that I hit traps. Also, look at where your traps are. There's a button you can hit. It says hide my landmines and view my landmines. If you toggle that on and you see where your landmines are, it gives you additional strategies you can implement on trying to force some of my pieces there. The blue ones are for queen, green is for rook, orange is for knight, yellow is for bishop. And then all the other ones are for pawns. White and black are pawns. Excuse me. It was a really long day. I feel like I'm yawning every single Wednesday. Every Wednesday is a long day. It is hump day, though. Remember that commercial with the camel? We come in, he's like, guys, you know what day it is? It's hump day. Wish I had that energy on a Wednesday. Need some camel energy. Yep. It is. It is hard to get those to work if it's a square to the side. Yeah. I'm specifically right now trying to get my pieces in spots where I have more options. Having options is great. It helps you so much. Because when your opponent goes to attack, you're like, okay, I can block it this way, or this way. Okay, so you have a pawn on c6 protecting the d5. You have your knight on f6. And you have... You're not boring me. I'm just exhausted. And you have your queen on d8 protecting the pawn on d5. So that's 3 pieces protecting it. I have my knight on c3 attacking it and my pawn on c4. You have more defense than I have attackers, so I know I'll lose that square if we play it out. The first one you'll probably take it with, though, is your pawn, which opens up me being able to check you. So the check isn't worth too much. I'll just go forward. And I did it, and I was sitting there and I was thinking I'm gonna hit a landmine as soon as I do it, but thankfully there's no landmine there. Did they ever give a name to that camel in that commercial? The one that goes around saying, it's hump day, guys. We should name that camel. Hamill? Hamill the camel? Like Mark Hamill? I think that's a good name. Hamill the camel. Is the camel's last name Camel, though? Hamill Camel? I don't know. What would you name the camel? Steve. I don't know. Interesting. That pawn on g5 is not protected, so I'm considering taking it with my knight. I think I'm going to do that. If you have a knight landmine there, great move. Nope, no knight landmine. Okay, that pawn is mine then. My queen still can't move out because of your pawns on h5 and f5. Sure, excuse me. My queen isn't able to come out on that diagonal easily. There's a lot of stuff blocking her. Okay, what's next? All right. We got to break through here somehow, so I'll do that. You don't like my knight? It's okay. We'll just protect it. That knight is my buddy. I'm not going to let you take my knight that easily. Get out of here. Knights are actually my favorite piece. Do you have a favorite chess piece? Yeah, there's a lot opening up here, so you have a really strong defense right now with your pawns, so I have to start attacking. The queen is your favorite? Yeah. Yeah, the queen is so powerful. She's a great piece. I like that the knight can move in ways that the queen can't move. You know, the king is actually a strong piece later in the game. FPS chess? Maybe? What's FPS chess? Oh, yeah. I did see that. Yeah. I have seen it. I think I saw a video for it recently and it had like over 10,000 views. So I guess it's picking up in popularity. Yeah, it looked really cool. I've seen there was another one that came out where it's like a grid system, and you like in real time pieces are moving and you're like taking them and fighting on the grid, and trying to like get your pieces like around, and you're trying to like gather territory. It looks similar to like Fortnite, where you know, as you gather more and more territory, you're forced to interact with more and more players, and you can only move your pieces in the way that that they can normally move. All right, let me see. I'm considering pushing straight through the middle with that E3 pawn. So if I go there, but you have 3 pieces defending, and I have 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah. All right. I have a lot of defense right now with that pawn. You have your pawn on D5, F5 attacking it, and your knight on F6 attacking it. But I have defense from my D3 bishop, my F3 pawn, my C3 knight, and then if need be, I have my knight on G5. G5 as well, but moving the G5 knight does open up my pawn on G2 to be hit by your rook on G8. So it gives you like a way to get your rook in and get an extra piece. I mean, but the rook can't do much damage except take that pawn once it gets there. Do you play the FPS chess? All right, I'm going to do the crazy move called en passant. Are you familiar with it? En passant? Yeah, I've heard it. Heard of it. So there's 2 weird moves in chess. The first move is castling, where you move your king 2 squares, and the rook goes on the other side. It goes to the square that your king jumped over. It's the only time in chess your king can move 2 squares, and it's the only time in chess you can move 2 pieces at once. Castling, you can do it on either side. It's always king goes 2. Can't, you know, rook goes on the other side. The rules for castling: you can't do it while in check. You can't do it if you've moved your king before, even if you move it back. You can't do it if you've moved the rook you're trying to castle with. You can't do it if you have pieces in the way. You can't do it if you're moving into check or jumping over the square where you would be in check. So there's a lot of rules for it. The other weird move in chess is en passant. En passant means in passing in French. You can do it where, so your pawn went from B7 to B5. It's only with pawns. And my pawn on C5 can take your pawn the turn immediately after, as if your pawn only went 1 square. The reason behind it is people would wait until pawns made it to a certain point, and then they'd, like you did, like jump past my pawn. It's a way to prevent that, and just be like, even if you try to jump past it, it still gets taken. The rule for it is it's only with pawns, and you can only take the turn immediately after the pawn went 2 squares. So that's what I did right there, en passant. And then in the move log, it just shows like a regular take. C takes B6. So yeah, you have any questions about it? It's one of the only weird moves in chess. There's 2 castling en passant. Yeah, it's a special move. It's the only 2 special moves though, so it's one of the things that, yeah, I went 1 square diagonally as if your pawn had only gone 1 square. So I took it as if you went 1 square, even though you went 2. And I was only able to do it the turn immediately after you go 2. So let's say I made a different move. I can't do en passant anymore the following turn. It has to be an immediate one. Yeah. So when a pawn goes 2 squares and lands adjacent next to another pawn, that other pawn can take the one that went 2 squares as if it went 1 square. Only pawns. Yeah, so I think it's the most recent addition to the rules of chess. I think it was added in like the 1600s. And then the most recent before that was castling. And then when you go back like 1,000 years, I think chess has been played exactly the same for like a little over 1,000 years since then. But I mean, there have been changes, prior to that, where people were like slowly perfecting the game until it became the game of chess that we know today. There's like different variations to chess too. Like I think there's a version in India where you don't have rooks, but you have elephants, I think. I'm not too familiar on chess history though. Cool. I'm gonna do that. That'll protect my pawn on g2, protect my pawn on b2 a little bit more, so you can't go for it. There is a move you can make where I'm not protecting something. But I don't know if it's a good move for you yet. I haven't really investigated it. I see that it exists now after I made my move, because I wasn't really looking, but now I see that it exists. I don't know if it's good or not. Oh, I see a continuation for it though. That's good for me. So yep, that's the one I was talking about, because I had left a piece completely unguarded. But I'm gonna follow through with my plan. Yeah, go for it. I do have a plan for it though, so. Your pawn on e6 is not allowed to take my pawn on f5 because I set up a pin. So the moment that pawn moves out of the way, your king is in danger. So, and then I have like my knight set on that e6 pawn as well. My pawn on f5 is targeting it. My queen is targeting it on e6. On e2 is targeting the e6 pawn. So I set up a lot of things around that e6 pawn right now. And when you brought your queen back, you lost a little bit of defense on it. So you have one piece defending it right now, your bishop on c8, and I have 1, 2, 3 attacking it. So you actually can't make one move to add enough defense to that pawn to block me from pushing there. If your queen was still back there, you might have been able to protect it and then move your king forward to protect it as well. You see it now, right? I think this will be my last game. I keep yawning on stream, and that's not good for stream. Not that there's any, it's just I got home so late. You know? Yeah, take a look at the board. Take your time. I'm really not used to going to bed that late. And I have a new puppy. I don't know if I told you. I got a puppy. Yeah. So moving the king there actually removed the c8 attack that you had on that pawn. So you went from having one defender to one defender again because it blocked your bishop. The puppy's name is Zelda. So now I have a cat named Link and a puppy named Zelda. And then to round out the Triforce, I have my other cat, Muggsy. She's pretty old. She's going to be 17 in like a month. But people are like, they look at her and they're like, she does not look 16 years old. All right. I want to attack again. I want to go like C1 to F4, but your queen is there and being a real stick in the mud. So I can't do it. Thanks. I think. Huh. So I see if I put my knight on B5, that's a fork on your queen and your king. But you have your pawn on C6 preventing that. So I was actually looking at the move of a bishop to B5. But it doesn't like force you to do anything. It just like means it sits there, you know? I do have... I could try to push your queen away. Let's do that. Queen, get out of here. Go away, queen. It limits where you can go. Yeah, so that double bishop combo is hitting so many squares right now. It greatly impacts what your queen is able to do. So if I keep attacking your queen, I might be able to do some damage here, or force you in a situation where you won't be able to save her. That's the goal. Yeah, it's only my knight protecting that pawn on E6, because I was looking at now, like, if you put your queen on E5, which I think is the only safe square. Oh, well, yeah, you have that too. Let me see. Yeah, I thought you'd go to the other side too, because my G3 pawn is, or G3 square is pretty open. Going to G3 would be a check. But I mean, like, it's just a check where I run away. It's not the worst thing. My queen is protecting all my back row pawns, except for A2, which is protected by my A1 rook. Let me see. All right, we're gonna give more protection to that pawn. Yeah, the lights keep going out from the storm. I'm gonna do that, sharpen it. I gotta be careful I don't get cut. Yeah, so right now you're pinning my knight. My knight isn't able to move from C3 because then my king would be taken by your queen. And thanks, yeah, so I don't know if I was ready to get a dog yet, but my wife was like, we're gonna go with the name Zelda, and I was like, that's how she got me. She knew, and she said that name, and she knew it would get me. She's so smart. She's tricky. I think what I'm gonna do next is, I think maybe I can push your queen away. Yeah, I think I can do that. Pawn A2 to A3, target the queen, make you run back. Yeah. Oh, you're targeting my bishop. It's a good game. I have to give some thought to these moves. I really, like, you're blocking me from putting my bishop on F4 completely with your queen. So that would be a nice check. Okay. I actually see a good set of moves here. But I'm just looking to see if I'm in danger by any of them. No, I have. Okay. I think you made a little blunder here. And I'm going to take advantage. Ready? Take. So I'll show you exactly what I mean. Because you have to take it with your queen if you're taking back. Yep, and then we go check. And it's a fork. It's on your king and your knight. So the knight is kind of just sitting there waiting to be taken, but you have to save the king. Yeah, okay. And go for knight. No landmine? Good. Really thought I'd hit a landmine again. And that puts my pawn in a good position. I have good like defense on it with my queen so close, so I could just trade a queen, get the pawn across, get a queen back. So that's like something I have set up right now, which can work out really well. I could also start trying to attack that rook. I have my bishop and my knight over there with my queen. The rook is not in danger right now, but it's doesn't really have any protection. It's kind of isolated. Yeah, I think what happened here is you have 3 pieces on your board right now that haven't moved at all, and I only have 2. Let's see. Oh, you don't want my knight to be there? Okay, I'm thinking knight to d5. Yeah, it's because I got some pieces out earlier. I'm thinking knight to d5, which sounds crazy, but like it sounds bad because you would just take it. But if you take it with the pawn, for example, right? Then I just move my pawn forward from e6 to e7, and that checks you. Nah, that won't work. That won't work. I think I gotta save the knight. All right, yeah, we'll save it. And we'll threaten your queen while doing that. Yeah, you kind of, they got blocked in. And when I saw they were getting blocked in, I started attacking more to make it more difficult for you to get them out. Yeah, that happens. I was trying to actively look for squares that you might be able to do things with and block them. But I have to say, between the games we've played, you've gotten a lot better in a short period of time. So you're doing really well. Yeah, so now I'm attacking the queen, and the pawn on d4, it's not protected. I can hit it with my queen and check, or then I can push my pawn from e6 to e7 and threaten a promotion, and then work on dealing with that rook with maybe like my bishop. Oh, I think I got you here. I think I got it. So we're going to take that pawn first and check, because I know it's safe because it's on my half of the board, so I don't have to worry about a landmine. Then the moment I move my knight out of the way, your queen is in danger by my bishop. My bishop is not protected, but if that knight is able to check your king, you have to save the king, and then I take the queen with the bishop. Does that make sense? Yeah, I think it makes sense. Okay. Okay. Your queen is there. I think I want to move my rook from A1 to D1. That'll protect. It'll have my queen and my rook in like a row. Okay. I could do knight to G3, but then you'll just take the pawn on G2. Okay. We'll go there, actually. That'll protect the pawn. It'll give me protection for that bishop too. If you decide to go for the rook at any point, I can just castle on the opposite side, and that'll protect both rooks. Yeah, I have a lot of protection on, like, all of my pieces are now protected, with the exception of my rooks, but my rooks are inaccessible at the moment, so it makes it a little bit easier. I don't have to really worry about protecting them, but I do have the option, because I haven't moved my king yet, to castle and protect rooks. So that's always an option. Because I can't move my king up to protect them, because your queen is blocking the entire 2 rank. So the 1 through 8 is called a rank, and then A through H is called a file. All right. I'm gonna castle. And that's all. That whole right side is pretty solid. It's well protected. It's well defended. Ah, you blundered. It's okay. It's okay. It happens. You did a really great job without blundering for like a long time. You should be proud of how you're playing. You should be really proud of how you're playing. I do blunder. I blunder all the time. Last week I was playing and I was making mistakes near the end of the game, the end of the day, like a lot. So no, a blunder is just giving up a piece, but sometimes you make a mistake. Like I'll make a mistake and I get punished for it later, and it might not be a piece, but I gave up like my queen pretty easily, and I ended up tying a couple games where if I hadn't made mistakes, I would have won. But that's how it goes, you know. All right, we'll go here. That way, if you take the knight, I take your rook. And then I have the ability to push that pawn up on the H file now. So I have 2 pawns I can push to try to go for a promotion if need be. We'll protect my bishop by blocking it with my knight. And then the knight is protected by my queen. It also gives me a good amount of attack around your king. So we'll start. So that's a fork on the rook. Yep, and then what I'm going to do is go for the rook. Leaves my knight open, but that's okay, because the bishop is also unprotected. Okay. We'll go forward. No landmine. That means I can recover a second queen on my next move. You played much better the last two games than you did the first game, for sure. You've grown a lot in a short period of time. All right. I don't know what square your queen landmines are on, but I'm really surprised I haven't hit them yet. I mean, you had a shot. Your queen landmines. Oh, it was that pawn. Yeah, it was C6 and A6. It was possible I could put my queen there, but yeah, I gotcha. After losing the rooks, that makes sense. So hey, it was really great playing with you. I had a great time, and thanks for watching and tuning in. And I'd like to thank everyone for playing. I had a great time. This was a lot of fun, and I'll be back next week. Oh, good game, good game. All right, I'm gonna call it. Thanks again. I hope everyone has a good night. Thanks. You have a good one. Bye.